Hi everyone, so this brief presentation will just go through the basics of how to write an assignment, or rather how to type an assignment. First of all, most of you will be familiar with Microsoft Word, so I recommend that you use Word if you can. We have it available in our library to write your assignments. You can talk to me if you don't have Word and we can see what we can do there. So for most of you that do have Word, you're going to see something like this when you're typing an assignment. Now I know many people have done this before and it mightn't be relevant, but I guess really some of the basic things I would just like to clarify. So first things first is the layout of an assignment. Well, firstly we would like always Times New Roman. The way you change that is simply by highlighting the text and finding the font you want. Again, if your font doesn't appear there, often if you scroll down, you'll find it down further. Headings, again, we'd like to increase in size, so I always say to put them up at a 14. Center face your headings and bold them, and this is how you bold. Again, if your assignment was called activity with a client, I would expect to see that, your name, the module, and the date. So I would expect to see something like that on the cover page of every assignment. Again, moving down to the first page, if we scroll down, you'll see that we would now start our assignment. So again, we're going to move our center face back to the left because this is where we're going to start the typing. Again guys, any assignment is like a story. It must have a start, a middle and an end. So again, you're going to expect to have an introduction there before you start any assignment. Now in the introduction I would expect to see things like the background or the context to the assignment you're writing, rather than jumping straight in. If we're doing an activity, for example with a client in a care setting, it'd be important that you would, and we'll just unbold it here, it'd be important that you would introduce the setting. Again, keep settings private, okay? So it is acceptable to outline the general information here, but do not give real names of settings or people, okay? And it's a very good idea to explicitly state that for the purposes of this assignment I'll be using pseudonyms, which basically means false names. So it's often good to identify your client early on and that it is not her real name or his real name. Okay, so once you've introduced the setting and where you're on placement, it's now a good idea to introduce your client. So that's going to be, for example, Mary Blogs, who is an 84-year-old nursing home resident. You know, outline how long she's been there, why she's there. For example, maybe her husband has died or she's become more dependent and she can't manage in her two-story dwelling, something along those lines. And again, try and draw from a real resident because you'll find the information will flow a lot easier. We may trip ourselves up if we're often pulling just from thin air. So you've introduced your client and you've introduced the background. The next thing you're going to do is introduce the task at hand. So you're going to comment on the fact that you've been asked to carry out an activity with the client, and just talk about your decisions in deciding what to do. Alright. So again, this might be just outlining the freedom you have in relation to activities, or it might be a time here to illustrate what an activity is. For example, I thought about carrying an outdoor activity with Mary, such as going for a walk, or going shopping, perhaps even an indoor activity such as creating Christmas cards, so on and so forth. So what you're really doing here straight away is demonstrating to me that you know fine well what an activity with the client constitutes. So we've introduced the general gist that we know what we're doing. We now need to move forward, and we now need to have a planning section. Again, this is another heading. So what I would always say is bold your headings to make it very clear and concise to me. Again, guys, just push it over to the left. Bold your headings so I know and I understand exactly where you are. Just to mention, a lot of people leave their headings left here with the text. It is perfectly acceptable to put them center face. I really don't mind, and that's entirely up to you. There's local policies and best practice with that, but really at the moment either will do in our case. Again, if I was to talk about planning an activity, I would expect a detailed account of how, and again guys, one thing is don't forget to unbold it, a detailed account of how you planned the activity with both the client and staff members, possibly family too, and that's dependent on the age of the client or whether the family is involved. So again, you're going to be looking at sitting down and gaining consent from the client and approaching them, asking them, can you carry out an activity, finding out ideas, so on and so forth, and approaching your line managers, your nurse in charge, your senior care, and asking them what they feel the client might like to do, so on and so forth. You're considering things here in the planning process, such as the what ifs. If we go outside, what could go wrong? What do we need to plan for? Toileting needs, nutrition needs. Does the person need assistance with eating and drinking? All these types of things. Do they take medication? Are you going to be out at the time that they're due their medication? Behaviourally, are they okay to go outside, or is there a risk maybe of agitation or other type of wandering behaviours? Again, it's really important to try and cover all these points to illustrate to me your knowledge and bank the most marks you can. The rest of this assignment will go on in terms of your implementation, and again that would be where you're going to give a step-by-step account of the activity start to finish, step by step, quite literally, where you would say, I arrived at 8 a.m. on the day of the activity. I approached Mary and asked her how she was feeling about the activity. You know, again, nice to introduce it rather than just jumping straight in. A lot of people tend to write bullet points for this. What I would say is try not to. Try and keep it in story format, because I find with bullet points people minimize what they'll say, and they're less inclined to maximize their score in this regard. Okay, after your implementation will come your evaluation. Again, the harder parts tend to come at the end with your evaluation and conclusions. And what I would say is, folks, when people get here, they tend to kind of relax and nearly feel like the hard part is over. Really, the hard part begins here. As I mentioned in class, the hard thinking really occurs when we self-evaluate. We critically analyse the scenario from start to finish. So it's not about just sitting back and writing 2 lines that the activity went well. We really expect you to evaluate the entire scenario. So we want you to evaluate your planning. Did you plan accurately? Did you plan with the right people? Did you plan the day before, or did you plan the week before? Should you have planned sooner? Or was your planning quite effective? Again, it's okay to compliment yourself, and we expect a bit of that too. But we would expect you to reflect on all of the planning. Again, you're going to reflect on your implementation. How did it go? Was there enough people on hand? Did you deal with every situation accordingly? And your conclusion really is going to stem from your evaluation. So that's going to be where you're overall restating what you've done, how you've done it, and you're drawing your final conclusions and recommendations for future practice. So for example, we'd expect that you'd give at least 5 points there on what you could or would do if you were to repeat this activity again. Again, it's useful to really think of things here that are meaningful rather than just regurgitate, I suppose, generic points here. That's really the basics for an assignment like care support and an activity that we'd expect you to carry out. I hope this helps you, and I intend to do some more screencasts to help you throughout the year. Again, guys, don't forget to save your activities, and if it's an assignment, just save activity with a client, and there you have it.